don't get into a relationship and try to make yourself somebody that you're not to please your partner.
Yeah.
It was, I guess this started back when I was like a kid, because usually, and you know, it's our mom or whatever, she is like, her view, or she wanted us to be successful in the way that she was successful, like go to school, get a job, maybe if it's in nursing or whatever the fuck. And that's not something.
Immigrant parents and shit.
Exactly. That's something that like we wasn't really fucking with. I didn't fuck with school at all. Like
nobody's sitting here right now. Fuck.
I thought I convinced myself that I fuck with school until
like,
it got bad.
Like, I feel like it was after like fifth grade. I was like, yeah, school shit ain't for
You
me,
at
bro.
5th grade? I do around like 5th grade.
Them reading logs was beating the shit out of me.
Boy, I ain't.
Oh my
Nigga, history was
goodness.
kicking my ass.
Forge of doom. Like, swear to God. So it got to where it became a problem for me in high school, where I got into a relationship with this one girl, and she was like the top of her class, like 4.0 GPA, scholarships. I'm not that nigga. But the thing was, and it's a lot of cycles that not everybody, but like a lot of people get into when they're in high school. Like they try to find somebody to go to prom with. They go to prom with that person. They end up dating for a certain amount of time. We ended up dating for like a year, and that entire time, I really didn't know what the fuck I wanted to do with my life. Like I knew that I didn't know. I wanted to go to college because my mom told me, yo, you should go to college to get a nice job. You gonna be in some debt, but it's gonna pay you off later and all this extra shit, right? And anytime I would be around her family, because they know like their daughter's going to college.
Yeah,
like,
know. They probably press you. But
They
what are you gonna do? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
what do I tell them?
Yeah.
What do I tell them? I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'm gonna go to college and I'm gonna be. And here's what like I peeped it now. It's like I knew that her father was a police officer. Her biological dad was a police officer. Her mom, the fuzz of dude. Like, and I think her mom was like a nurse or something. So me not knowing what the fuck I want to do, I'm like, how do I please these people in this point in time? How do I make it easier on myself? I'm going to school for criminal justice. I didn't know shit about criminal justice. I didn't know shit about criminal justice. Didn't care about no criminal justice.
He wanted to be a YouTuber. He just
Bro, I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that's what I want to do in school. And they, oh, but that's not
Criminal justice.
Criminal justice bullshit. So, man, like it gets to a point where like,
you gotta find out who you are.
yeah,
Before.
I'm glad that you said that. Before any of y'all niggas that's watching this, bro, before you get into a relationship, please find out who exactly like who you are. Do not go into a relationship without like, or don't get into a relationship and try to make yourself somebody that you're not to please your partner.
Yeah, real.
Don't do that shit.
I think we've all done that.
Yeah,
segued
segued literally perfectly. And
Yeah.
I'm not
even done yet.
Yeah,
but like,
continue.
so it got to a point where I think it was my first year in college or whatever. I dropped out like first semester.
Real.
And now that I think about it, she wasn't like really fucking with it. And I was like, oh, but I'm gonna do this XYZ. And I felt like that was like the time where I really like realized that the person that I was like pretending to be for her and her family, that was not me at all. So when I showed like who I really was, she didn't really accept that. But at the same time, that's real though.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
And that's what I was gonna
real.
say. And look what happened, right? You're sitting here doing what you wanted to do because you accepted like who you wanted to be, right?
Exactly.
The reaction that you don't have in that scenario, right? Because like I said earlier, there are a lot of women who will not be ready to deal with whatever realizations you come to about yourself, even as a man. The reaction in that situation, when you have a partner that is not like supportive of like who you want to be, should not be, all right, well, fuck.
And that, and that was
all
my
women are.
and that was my reaction at first.
Yeah.
That was my reaction at first because after we had that conversation, it was a big like fuss or whatever, and then we kind of got back together, but it was still strained a little bit. And then I think it was right after her prom, because I graduated a year before her. So after her prom, she left. She said, "We can't do this no more."
Damn.
And at the time, I'm like,
They fucked you up.
bro, what are you talking about? Like, we've been together for a year and all this extra shit. And at the time, like my immature self, I'm like, bro, she's really about to like break this shit off.
Yeah, and you're not wrong for feeling that again.
Yeah, I'm not wrong for feeling like, yo, she about to really leave. But in the back of my head, I wasn't thinking about like, she literally has her whole life set up. Like she knows exactly what she wants to do. And she's looking at me like, you don't really know what you want to do yet.
And you know what I say about that? I want to speak on that real quick. That's a very harsh perspective, even at that, because she doesn't.
Yeah.
Nobody
You don't
has
know
their
at
life
that age.
figured out at
Exactly.
18, bro.
You're just
and I'll say this, like people in general will guilt trip you into believing that like people have their lives figured out at 18. Nobody does. And you go over that hill, right? And you get to a point where you're at now, where it's like what he was saying. But you get to a point where you're at now where it's like, I'm sure she's living okay, fine, chilling, and you're living fine, chilling. And that's life.
That's it.
You
Yeah.
move.
That's
You don't
really-
have
that's
to
it.
create these realities of
You
hatred for every woman.
Yeah.
Bro, you
don't.
and that's
Connecting to your
that's
point.
the sorry to cut you off, but that's the cycle that I fell into is like, oh man, fuck this man, like I don't give a fuck about her or whatever. And then it took some real like deep dives into who I am and like meditation and all that extra shit. And I came to the realization, I'm like, I wasn't the person who I said I was.
Yeah.
So her leaving, I'm not mad at that.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's
I
real.
could have been a nigga that's still angry to this day. Man, fuck that. She broke
that's-
my heart. And
You know what that is?
but you gotta say fuck all that, bro. You gotta literally dive down into yourself and like, yo, I'm the type of person like I'll wait for somebody. My girl that I have now, she waited for me. Like I was still kind of fucked up when we met, but she helped me out in a way. Like she gave me like she used her afterpay to help me get my PC.
like
For real. That's
Crazy
basic.
as hell.
What I was
But
gonna
now
say is though,
but now your boy's in the position where she don't gotta work. no
exactly,
more.
right?
Exactly.
And what I was gonna say is that's
Exactly.
basic accountability.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
that's what that is.
basic
literally.
accountability.
It just
Understanding
deep it,
that.
bro.
Deep it.
Deep it.
Continue.
Yeah.
What was you saying to say?
Oh, earlier I was talking about the point you had made about how she broke up with you because she had her whole life planned out. And how you were saying, well, shit, you really don't. And I think that connected to the point where you're talking about with like having people in your relationship. And the
Yeah.
sense of,
Yes,
like,
Yeah.
what
Those
mainly-
other voices.
what
though.
the stem from was actually her parents putting like, okay, this is the idea of
about
the
it.
life you
Talk
need
about
to
it.
live.
Yeah.
So
Talk about it.
therefore, it got pushed on
Yes,
you.
and
Talk about
also,
it.
and
that's
I
how
will
it was.
say another lens to analyze that through is as a nigga who, and you were as well, had an idea, and I'm pretty sure all of us were, had an idea at what point in the time of like what our parents wanted, like, and what we were gonna do with that information. I can understand how hard of a decision it is to make, to be like, yo, this path that I've told myself that I wanted is not actually something that I wanted. It's something that my parents wanted. That's a hard fucking step to take. And at the end of the day, what is holding that resentment gonna do? I can't blame you that you weren't ready to make the insane call that like, hey, maybe all this shit that I've been working towards in high school is not actually what my passion is.
Right. Yeah.
And you made a decision that like, again, and it fucked you up, but you made a decision to dip in that headspace. And looking back at it, even me now, looking back at my relationship, I am not the nigga I was when I was dating her because I was suppressing those things about myself and everything. And I wasn't, like you said, I wasn't who I said I was. So I don't like that path of like staying in that hurt and letting that fuel your outlook on everything moving forward stops you from getting the opportunity to get with someone next who will support the fuck out of your dreams because you're just convinced that you will never find that when it's billions of people on this planet.
Yeah.
8 billion.
And then
You
that
have
even-
to keep moving.
That even goes
Exactly.
back to like the little shit that you'll hear online and be like, okay, like the whole thing of red flags. I think you can have your red flags, but I think social media is completely like
Oh,
made
yeah,
a
it's
whole
meaningless.
dramatic scene. And I think
A nigga step with his left foot, that's a red, like, come on, that's
yeah, bro. And the fucked up thing is what Matt was saying is when you have a situation like that, you automatically go to your shell and like, okay, well, that's a red flag. I'm done. When in actuality, bro, there's like, what do you mean you have your whole life figured out?
Yeah,
No, bro.
exactly.
Like, you know, you don't have to break it because of that. 'Cause
Yeah.
now it's a missed opportunity.
And you have
because
to,
you didn't see
and
the nuance.
That's where,
Right.
like you were talking about, that accountability comes in, because you have to just at some point accept that, like, hey, a decision was made. You weren't who you were. She wasn't who she was.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then you can
move.
It is
Then
what it
move
is.
on.
Just move
because
along.
at the end of the day, there are so many things that you have to continue living for. There's so many other things that you have to continue seeing, and you cannot get an accurate view of anything moving forward or your own healing process if you're clouded constantly by that. Like, it's okay to feel that for a long time, but you cannot take that ideology and be like, all right, this is a general rule that I'm going to follow now. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of devoid of context. That means
Yeah.
you haven't fully understood what happened back there. I remember even in my situation, I'm like, all right, cool. It sucks because at one point in my life, I was convinced, all right, this till forever, cool. But I'm like, when I look back right now and I realize that I wasn't even, people all over like this country at this point, like, look at me and the things that I do and very much appreciate it. When I realized that I wasn't even taking that shit seriously when I was with her, because I was influenced by her perspective, by my OG's perspective, by people around me that like weren't really taking it seriously. Only niggas around me taking it seriously was really them, and I didn't talk to them as much, or Abee. That was just kind of the world that I was in. My roommate at the time wasn't really like pushing me or taking my shit seriously or whatever. My girl at the time really wasn't. So I was just kind of like, I knew I kind of wanted to be a lawyer. So you just kind of follow down that path. But it's like, if I wasn't taking it seriously, something that I'm passionate about, something that I love doing, how can I expect myself to have like stood up in that scenario and been like,
Right.
yo, you should care about this because I actually XYZ. I feel like I tried, but I didn't even try enough because I'm like, I didn't understand the value of it. And I didn't see that until I was not with this person. So there's so much growing that you can do in that through like that loss. And that's where it really comes in handy to like dive into yourself and question yourself on those things.
Yeah.
W.
Question for the both of y'all is, in your past relationship, did y'all have to compromise for their family, or did you feel like okay, like maybe they won't like this, so maybe I won't bring it up?
I want you to answer first because you haven't talked.
You have.
Because I'm waiting.
You want to you waiting to
I
share
think you bring
everything.
answer.
waiting.
Compromise. I feel like, I'm not sure. I feel like in my scenario, it wasn't, at least career-wise, I kind of got like love from her family when it comes to like me being on social media, right? But it was like always passing. It was like, oh, this is famous on TikTok or whatever, da-da. And that's kind of like the extent to which it was mentioned. And I feel like it's so crazy because that in and of itself is not an overt like, all right, I can't really do what I want to do or else the family might not fuck with it or she might not fuck with it. But it was kind of like all right, you're going to school. JJ, you're going to school too. All right, well, we're going to assume that that's the thing. And you do this little TikTok thing on the side, so that's cool. So it like kind of disincentivized me from wanting to bring it up because it's just like, it's just a little TikTok shit, whatever. It gets talked about occasionally. It's
As soon
not
as you
really
bring it up as like
Yeah.
the main shit, now it might be a problem.
Yeah, that was something that I didn't get like a perspective or support from like anybody besides like y'all when it came to that. So I didn't really like even feel like wanting to act like, there was never a time where I'm sitting down giving an in-depth story about like a back and forth that I had on TikTok or like the time where people wanted to sue me or what. I didn't get to talk about or enjoy anything about what I was doing because I felt like niggas didn't give a fuck.
You think your love for it died because you didn't have the support, especially from like your girlfriend at the time?
I think it suffered. I think it definitely suffered because there was like a time where I went away. I remember it was around the first time we broke up. I went away for like 2 months, didn't post a single video. I couldn't imagine that now for obvious reason. Now there's a lot of shit going on online, but I actually like doing it. But at that time, it was like kind of secondary to everything that was going on in my life. And it was kind of incentivized to be that way because there was never really a time where it was shown like, oh, it's a really cool thing that he does. And let me try to figure out some stuff about it, whatever. And I remember that fucked me up for such a long time. That fucked me up for such a long time because it's one of the worst things in the world to feel like something that you genuinely care about, your partner didn't give a fuck about.
Yeah.
But then I immediately realized I've not been with anybody since then, but I've already like realized how much people do care about it, how varied that perspective is because I've talked to people and I've talked to girls who like genuinely see the value in this shit and are like, oh, that's so cool. Like, and will actually like ask questions about it, little minimal shit that I never really had. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting. Do you think like that pause of not dating someone and actually like healing from your shit, do you think that helped you not to generalize? Because you'll see like a lot of niggas go through shit and then they'll jump in something instantly after. And I think, and then they can get into another toxic relationship because they didn't take the time on themselves. Do you think that's where a lot of men go wrong into generalizing?
Yeah. And I think the reason why is because like immediately after my relationship, I didn't take as much time as I needed to heal. I immediately got back with her pretty much. Not like immediately. That was like a 6-month break or some shit like that. But I feel like the thing that really helped is that single afterwards really helped me not generalize, because I realized that a lot of the things that I was going through with this person was a problem with the dynamic between me and this person. Like there are certain things, even like you were talking about pulling from Matt's relationship or like my relationship, there are certain things that I'm seeing even from like Matt or from like other situations that I'm like, all right, cool. This is an issue in my relationship. This doesn't have to be an issue. This is just based on the person that I'm with currently. And when I learned enough about that person to understand that things weren't going to change, and then it made it okay, I can let go of this and try to look for something different to actually allow myself to believe that I'll get that in the future. And I feel like I wouldn't have had that if I immediately got another situation, because there was times where I tried to talk to other people immediately after, and then I realized that it's like, all right, I'm thinking about Shorty all the time. I'm trying to make comparisons, X, Y, Z, da, da. Okay, I'm not like in it. I'm not like here, and I can't like do that. You kind of need that time of that peace to not only understand how you felt about your previous situation, but how you feel about you. Like we keep saying, because if we really the thing where the accountability comes is really in those interpersonal relationships. Like regardless, y'all want to talk about accountability. Well, what if when a man was all right, cool, all that shit. The thing where it really becomes equal and you got to really figure out how to operate around another person is when you're with that person and when you're digesting what you've been through with that person. Yeah. And that's when you have to be like open, honest about what you did, what you didn't do, like shit that you felt, the way that they made you feel or whatever. And I feel like you need that time to kind of like fully process that. And a lot of niggas, it'll either be they'll get themselves distracted and then they won't process it, or like you could fall in that trap where you get immediately into something else and then you can't.
Yeah, you have to be vulnerable to have that peace of mind
in that healing phase.
I heard you before we transition. You like talked about like a lot with your past shit with us. Did you kind of the same thing with JJ? Like when you had that breakup, were you kind of like going to other shit fast? Like did you allow yourself to like? Really
I did not
process
give
everything?
my time. I did not give time for me to heal. No, I didn't.
How did it like?
It's like so. It affected me in a way where it got me into certain situations and predicaments that I wouldn't normally get myself into. Like I found myself like across town trying to fuck with somebody. Why am I over there at like 2, 3 in the morning? What do I have? I don't have any business being over there. I need to start working on me. So I had to literally stop all that shit and like that was when I got deep into like meditation, like heavily, and that's what changed me for real.
And you would say like you really kind of like found yourself through that.
Thank you for watching this long. If you haven't already, subscribe. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? You think we just sitting here doing it for nothing?
You think you're gonna sit here and not
need
shit?
to
Like,
eat. I know you're not subscribed. Click it.
Cool.